Hi and welcome once again. This is Jennifer McGuire. Today I have a card showcase for you. In my card showcase videos, I show a bunch of examples using products from a new release, and today's new release is from Concord 9th. I have a bunch of examples for you, and they all have a different look, so hopefully there'll be something for everyone. I also share a lot of tips throughout the video on ways to stretch your products and get different looks from them. I only do card showcase videos when I think a company has a release with a lot of creative products in it that are worth checking out. And this release is just really fantastic and creative, so I thought I'd share it with you. Let's get started with my first two examples, and they both feature a new Turnabout stamp from Concord 9th. Turnabout stamps are very unique in that you stamp it and then rotate it and stamp it and rotate it to create a colorful background. Done many videos in the past using Turnabout stamps from Concord 9th. I'll link to a helpful one up here on the top right if you want to check it out. But this one's a little bit different. There are many different looks you can get from this one Turnabout set. So with the Turnabout set comes this guide, and that's the piece that you see over on the right. You use this to set up your Turnabout stamp. It's really easy to do once you've tried it. Then this set actually comes with another guide, this one with all the flowers, that allows you to get a different look out of your Turnabout, and I'll show you that one on my next example. Let's get started with the simple background using this flower Turnabout. You put the guide on your work surface, and then you take the Turnabout stamp and line up the stamp with the guide. So the back of the stamp is facing up towards the camera, and you can see how the stamp lines up with the guide. Now you need this Concord 9th Stamping Jig. If you don't have the Stamping Jig, I'll link here to a video showing how to make your own. And you line up the X on the jig with the X on the guide. It's very easy to do. Once you have it lined up, you put the jig in the corner of your MISTI stamping tool or whatever stamping tool you have. Close the door, remove the guide, and now your stamp is ready to do Turnabout stamping. If you've never seen a Turnabout stamp, you'll see it in action here. Now you could use the jig and tape any size paper you want to on that and stamp with the jig. But what I like to do is use a 6x6 piece of cardstock and stamp on that instead. That way I have leftover pieces on the side for future cards. Now I'm stamping my first turn with Altenew ink. This is Caribbean Sky. Then I'm going to clean my stamp and watch. I'm going to rotate my paper one turn. So watch, I'll turn it once to the right. Now I will ink up my stamp with another color and stamp that. And this ink will be slightly darker. You could use absolutely any inks that you want to for this. You could do heat embossing, anything you want. Okay, now I'm going to take my paper and rotate it again. Each time I'm rotating in the same direction. This time I'm using Volcano Lake ink from Altenew, and I'll stamp that. And by the way, this cardstock that is 6x6 is Hero Art's Arctic cardstock, which I use a lot. Okay, we're on our fourth and final turn and stamp, and this time we're using Altenew Lagoon ink. So we end up with this simple but sweet background that you can either leave as is, or you can do some stamping between. I decided to use some of the small leaf images in the stamp set to add little leaves here and there. So I positioned a leaf by some flowers, I stamped it once, and then I rotate it and stamp it again, rotate and stamp it again. And this is a quick way to add some leaves to those flowers. This time I'm using Altenew Lime ink. So you could step this background up as much as you want. I decided to do quite a few leaves, but you could leave it simple if you wanted. So I kept going, and then I started to add 2 leaves to stamp at once to save some time. And I used Altenew Limeade ink, Altenew Lime, and Altenew Sweet Leaf ink for all of the leaves that I did here. So you can see how you quickly can fill up that background. Once I was done, I went ahead and trimmed this background down, and I'm going to end up with a piece that is 5.5 by 4 inches. And I can save the leftover strips for another card. Okay, now for the sentiment. I'm using the Concord 9th Thank You for Being You stamp set. This is another new one. And check this out, all of those sentiments in the set can be built up to create a bunch of different sentiments. Look at all the different options. Angie from Concord 9th shared this image with me and said that I could share it with you. And you can see all the different combos that you can get. And you can stamp all those words in different colors to create something colorful too. I ended up just using the thank you greeting. Now this stamp set also has a coordinating die set, and I'll be using the frame included in that. Now I die cut the frame from white cardstock, and it has that fun shape to it with faux stitching on the inside edge. I stamped thank you, and then I also created some flower and leaf die cuts using that stamp set and the Kindness Bloom stamp set that I showed you earlier. After I've arranged those, I decided to trim my label piece to be smaller. So it's up in the top corner of our card. I didn't want it to cover too much of my background up. I die cut 3 additional white labels, and I'm gluing them on the back just to give it some nice raised dimension. Then I can add that to the top of our card. So this card is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then you see that blue frame there? That's included in that die. And it cuts a perfect little frame to go around that white label. And I did that from Hero Art's Lapis Blue cardstock. I added some white pearls here and there, and then I used a white Uniball pen to add some dots to the background pattern. It really makes it pop since we used a soft blue cardstock instead of white to do our stamping. So here's a look at the final card. There's something rewarding about making what looks like my own pattern paper. It's something that I enjoy so much, and this stamp was perfect for it. That's why I was so excited about it. Okay, let's move on to our second example using that Kindness Blooms Turnabout stamp set. This is the other style background that you can create using that Turnabout, which is really unique. So I'm going to start out the exact same way I did on my last example. I have a 6x6 piece of cardstock, this time white, and I'm stamping the Turnabout once with Hero Art's soft vanilla ink, and then a second time with Butter Bar ink. This time I'm stopping. After 2 turns, we're going to stop and switch to this guide here. This is the other guide included in that stamp set. And you can line up the small flowers on the guide with the small flowers on your stamped piece. Then you take the larger flower and leaf images included in the set, line them up with the guide, remove the guide, and stamp. And that way your flower images fit perfectly in between all the tiny flowers that you've already stamped. And you can end up creating a background with lots of different colors of ink. Now I started out doing 1 flower at a time. I ended up kind of stepping it up and doing a flower and a leaf at a time just to save some time through the process. And before you know it, you end up with a really colorful background. You could do just a few big flowers if you wanted. You could skip some of the leaves if you wanted and change up the look each time. So I continued the stamping, and once I did my first layer of stamping, I went ahead and trimmed it down to show you what that looks like. Looks great as is, but there are second layers to the leaves and the flowers that you can do. And I went ahead and did that. I'm using all the same color inks I used on my last card. So after I did all the stamping, I end up with this really colorful background, and it was so much fun to make. I then used my Copic marker just to add a little darker color and some dots here and there to the tiny flowers in the background. Now, earlier I showed you briefly that the Kindness Bloom stamp set has a coordinating die set. This is what that looks like. And I used the You Are So Kind word blocks, and I die cut them from Hero Art's pitch black cardstock. I die cut them 3 times so that I could glue them together for a stacked look. The fun thing about these word blocks is you could use the blocks or you could use the tiny letters themselves, which are perfect. They're just really nice and dainty and would be fun to add to a card. So I glued 3 layers of the word blocks together. And then on the back of the 3 layers, I'm putting a piece of white cardstock, just a white scrap, so that white shows through the letters and it gives a fun kind of shadow box look. I then did glue in the tiny bits for inside of the O and the A and the R and the D. And there we have our fun block words. I glued those to the front of the card and then added my floral panel onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch note card that I made from Hero Art's Meadow cardstock. Oh, and I also added a few soft blue pearls to the background between the flowers. So I really like how that Kindness Blooms stamp set can be used in several ways to get different looks. Okay, my next 2 cards again use the same stamp set, but have very different looks. This first one's a little bright, you gotta wear your sunglasses for it, but I thought I'd show you how to do a smaller turnabout and how to add to it to create something dimensional. This is the Concord 9th Warm Wishes Turnabout. This is a smaller set, 4x6, and there are actually 2 mini turnabouts. There is also a coordinating die set available with the word warm, a banner die, and then dies to cut out what you turn about with this set. So let's start with the first turnabout. There are 2 guides included in the set, one for each turnabout. I'm starting with the first. I'm lining up the stamp with the image on the guide. I then am going to take my guide and put it on top of the jig, lining up the X on the jig with the X on the guide. It's hard to see the X on the jig in the video, but I promise it's there. Now I'm adding white cardstock to the center of my jig, and then I'm going to do the first turnabout. I'm inking up my stamp with yellow ink and stamping it. Once I'm done, I rotate the jig 1 turn, and then I ink up with another color and stamp. The 4 colors that I included are Hero Arts Butter Bar, and then Altenew Honey Drizzle, Lemon Burst, and Snapdragon inks. I'm surprised I remembered that, but I feel like everything I learned in college was erased in my brain and replaced with colors of inks. I don't know if anybody else is that way. I can remember colors of inks, but I can't remember what I had for breakfast. It's pretty painful. But anyways, there we have, check out this really cool star sunny looking background. Now I did that twice, exact same thing on the second one, used the coordinating die to cut it out, both of them, and I glued them together for dimensional sun. I also die cut warm, which is in that coordinating die set, 3 times from white cardstock and once from Hero Arts pitch black cardstock, and glued those together for dimension. I also thought it'd be fun to have some soft sun rays on the back of the card, so I'm using Trinity Stamps Catching Some Rays stencils. There are actually 2 stencils included in this set, and they layer together, but I decided only to use one of them on this card. So I positioned it so that it's kind of off to the corner on my card, and I'm using the Stamp Market blending brush along with Hero Arts Butter Bar ink to make the yellow kind of come from the center of the sun and go out. And this is on the top of a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch white note card. I then added the sun that I created right on top of that, and also quite a few yellow gemstones for some sparkle. Now look at the detail in that turnabout and the yellow stars, super cool. And what would be fun is you could do sunshine sentiments or different things with this. And this is one of those cards that is sure to cheer someone up. And by the way, the small sending thoughts sentiments are actually from a Mama Elephant set. The Concord 9th set has a larger sending thoughts. I decided to mix some stamps together. I like to do that. So the sending and thoughts is from this Mama Elephant mini everyday messages stamp set. So it's fun to kind of change things up once in a while. Now this card was actually made with that same Turnabout stamp set, and it has a completely different look, which is one of the reasons I really like the set. So included in the set is the guide to make this little turnabout. So I'm lining up the stamp with the guide for the turnabout. Then I will line up the guide, the X on the guide, with the X on my jig. Make sure that my jig is in the corner of my stamping tool. Then I'll close the door and we can start our turnabout stamping. As I've done with the others, you stamp, turn the jig, stamp, turn the jig with 4 different colors, and I'm using the same ink colors that I used on my first card example. And check this out, you end up with what looks kind of like a snowflake, but I think it's a pattern that you could use throughout the year. And for my card today, I made it a non-snowflake look. So I did that several times, and then I used the coordinating die to cut them out. I also drew some guidelines on my white note card with a pencil. You can't see them there, but they are there to make sure I get everything straight and centered. This note card is 4 1/4 by 5.5, and I'm arranging some of these in kind of a circle on the front of the card. I then added some gemstones to the pattern just for some sparkle, and also added a white heat embossed "You're the Best Ever" sentiment strip to the center. I think it'd be fun to do the same card design in different colors, maybe even do a rainbow of patterns. So one of them be different shades of red, one be different shades of orange, and put them together to create a rainbow look. Now that little sentiment is from the Concord 9th Lots to Say stamp set, which is one that I've used a lot in videos. It's a smaller set with a great price point, and I really like the sentiments included. Okay, my last few cards use a lot of the remaining Concord 9th products from this release. In this case, I used a die cut background along with a personalized die cut sentiment. This features the Concord 9th Tall Type Alphabet die set. It has the alphabet along with some little symbols, a heart, and also block words for and happy. To go along with this, they have a new stamp set called Playful patterns, and these can be stamped behind the letters or on the letters to add some fun. They also, which is really smart, came out with a number set, but what's cool about their number set is it includes the letters to do second, third, fourth, and also a number sign. So you can do like happy 4th birthday or different things like that. And by the way, these letters are about 1.5 inches tall. I'm also going to be using the Concord 9th Hexagon Designer die set, and this is going to be on my favorites list. The reason is it comes with this extra die that allows you to cut strips that fit perfectly behind the pattern, which is a huge time saver. Now, Concord 9th did give me like a sheet of some examples of things you could make. Check out all the different patterns. You can basically create whatever pattern you want in here. Or you can use those extra dies to create lines of color to go behind. And I'm going to show you how that works in a moment. So here are a bunch of their different examples. I like the idea of doing a personalized letter. There is also an instruction on how to put these together. Super fun. So I have a few examples using this background. Now my first example just uses it as a backdrop for the die cut letters, but I'll show you some techniques after that. So for the first card that says God is good, I die cut 3 of the hexagon pattern from white cardstock. And I'm putting a little bit of glue here and there on the back of each and gluing them together for dimension. I really like to do this. I think it's a great way to make your cards stand out. And then I glued that onto a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch note card. You could definitely do one layer if you prefer. Now to arrange the letters for the front of this card, I'm using some purple tape, so any kind of temporary tape works. I have the sticky side of the tape facing up to the camera, and I'm taping the ends down so that it's lined up with the grid pattern on my work surface. Off screen, I die cut the letters God is good, and I actually did each letter 3 times from scrap colors of cardstock and glued them together so that I have dimension to them. Now I'm arranging God is good using the grid on my background. Then I'm taking 2 more pieces of tape, laying it across the top so that I can transfer them to these pieces and pick up them all together perfectly positioned and spaced. Now these pieces of tape can be reused several times and I'll save them. So don't feel like it's going to waste because you can tear them up and use them for die cutting or to do this technique a few times. Okay, now that I have this, I can go ahead and put some strong liquid adhesive on the back of each letter. This is Gina K Connect adhesive. A little goes a long way. You don't need to use much. Then I can pick the letters up together and put them onto my note card towards the bottom. And I can be sure that it's centered and straight. Doing this is a huge time saver over gluing each letter down individually. Once that was dry, I went ahead and removed that tape. And I put Tonic Aqua Shimmer pen on each letter for some sparkle. And then I put glossy accents on top for some dimension and shine. So here is the completed card. I made this one for my mother-in-law because she had some really scary health things happen last weekend. And we were provided a miracle. And so I thought this card would be fun to send to her. I think she'll really appreciate it. So anyways, you can see the sparkle and shine on those letters and the fun dimension in the background. Okay, my next card was my favorite to make, and I call it my therapy card because I find it very therapeutic to put a card like this together. Now, I started by using that hexagon die to cut from a bunch of different colorful scraps that I had in my scrap drawer. And I saved all the tiny little bits that I could so I could create a colorful background. I also used the same die to die cut from white cardstock, and I glued it onto a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch white note card. Now I'm putting drops of liquid adhesive in the openings and using my jewel picker to pick up each little piece and pop them in place. This is the part that is very therapeutic to me. I enjoy doing this so much to create a die cut inlay look. And I didn't want to have to plan out how many to do of each color, so I just did this fun kind of mix of blending lighter colors to darker colors. So I continued to fill the background off screen, and then it was time to create a sentiment, which I wanted to keep simple. I reach back to one of my favorite Concord 9th stamp sets and coordinating dies. This is the Concord 9th Filled In Florals stamp set. I love that you can stamp this sentiment, then check out how the die lines up so easily. You can peek through it, then run that through any die cut machine and you get this perfect sentiment. I just love that. I used that coordinating die to die cut 2 times from white cardstock, and I glued those 2 die cuts behind the stamped die cut so I'd have dimension behind it, and then I added it to my card. I also used my black glaze pen to trace the words "Hello, darling friend," so it has that little bit of shine to it. So this is very therapeutic to me. Some people enjoy coloring. I enjoy doing die cut inlay like this. So much fun, and you could do any of those fun patterns I showed you. Now, if you wanted to use this die and get a colorful look but wanted to save time, you need to check out this next example because this is what was brilliant about this die set that they created. Okay, for this card, I die cut the background from white cardstock, and I'm putting adhesive on the back of it. I also use that other long die that you see there to cut from some colorful scraps. This is what saves time. So now on the back of this, I'm going to put the strips, lining them up with the openings, and it looks like you filled each of those with individual pieces. You can put these strips diagonal like I'm doing, or you can do horizontal, and you can even cover the entire background. I just did a rainbow of strips, and when I was done, I flipped the die cut over, added some adhesive to it, and then added it to a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch white note card, and I just left it with that simple rainbow. I used the same alphabet set from earlier to die cut black letters that say Lila. Then I used the Lots to Say stamp set to stamp You're My Happy on a white sentiment strip. I like that you can easily personalize a card using those alphabet dies. And there's one more product from this release. I believe it's one that you can get free with a certain purchase for limited time at Concord 9th, but will be available for purchase later, and you can use that for stitching. Okay, so there you have a look at the Concord 9th release along with a bunch of card examples. If you're interested, all of these products are linked below in my YouTube description. I am so thankful that you spent this time with me today. I hope you feel inspired to try some of these things out, and we'll see you soon.